Hello, welcome to the fifth and final episode of the Keighley Poltergeist, for now at least. In this episode, I'm going to look at the possible explanations for our story, paranormal and skeptical. Also, at the end, I'll introduce my next investigation. Firstly, I've had some great feedback on the podcast so far, so I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's listened along to this research journey. I'm delighted people are enjoying the depth of the research and revealing the new aspects of this 100-year-old case. I wanted to shout out a couple of podcasts in particular who I've been in touch with, the 40 News podcast and Beyond the Veil. Both are well worth a listen. I have had a few critical notes, which is fine, who have mostly focused on my skeptical outlook. One in particular said I present the history as fact, but the paranormal as fiction, which I thought was quite good. The reason I started this podcast is that as a historian with an interest in the paranormal, I find it very frustrating how history can be misused in paranormal investigations. People, I'll mention no names, love to lean into a bit of history to provide the foundations for a ghost story. But it's more often than not so badly done, it should be regarded as irrelevant. However, because it's presented as fact, it becomes part of the story, as though it somehow validates it. Hopefully, I've demonstrated in Gwen's case that good historical research can enrich a story and provide possible answers to things that were previously mysteries. I'm not here about debunking stories, but that's why I do this podcast. I'm a historian, and it's a history podcast about the paranormal, and it will continue in that way, putting my historical skills into practice in this field. I love ghost stories, and I think they deserve the history behind them to be genuine, not prejudiced. And it can work the other way. A few years ago, I was the guest historian on an episode of Help My House is Haunted, a very popular paranormal TV program in the UK. The show researchers had picked up on an infamous coal mining disaster near the house they were investigating. But the house was modern, and they were disappointed to learn that it was over a mile away from the mine. But through my research into the disaster, I was able to tell them that although the house was modern and far away from the mine buildings on the surface, it was built directly above some of the underground workings where hundreds of men and boys had died in the disaster. Anyway, off my soapbox, back to Keighley. The People, a national newspaper in the UK, ran Gwen's story back in 1925, saying, "Her amazing influence upon inanimate objects presents one of the most remarkable human scientific problems of recent times. Roughly speaking, opinion is divided between spooks and sparks. In other words, between the psychical and the electrical explanation of the phenomena associated with the girl. Spooks or sparks, or maybe something else. So let's start with the paranormal explanation, a spook. Gwen's father was haunting her, and his spirit or poltergeist was having a physical impact in the world. For some reason, he was throwing things around and tampering with machinery. And then, whilst at the British College of Psychic Science, the professor and Whitehawk, I hope you remember them, or this is an odd sentence, spoke with him, and he agreed to leave Gwen alone. Any further incidents were him breaking that promise. This explanation is simple, it fits with the narrative and the known story of Gwen's life. So that's spooks. What about sparks? Was Gwen a scientific phenomenon? Could she discharge some kind of electrical or other power over items, causing machinery to malfunction and objects to move? This has been an area of study for many years, and there are still scientists working on it today. Recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, or RSPK, is a theory which would explain this case as Gwen being the cause of the phenomena, unknowingly, not her father's ghost. And there is a supposed link between RSPK and emotional state, and again, this would fit with the narrative. But I think there's a final explanation. And apologies, I'm going to go ultra skeptic here, but bear with me. Gwen had mental health issues associated with her father. Who doesn't? How he was in life, and then his death. A bad romantic relationship breakdown in the summer of 1924 was a trigger that pushed her over the edge. She couldn't cope, and she started, either knowingly or not, sabotaging her work and throwing things around. This spiraled into a pattern of behavior which coincided with some incidents that she had nothing to do with. The incidents were pure coincidence, mill machinery breaking in her presence, maybe some pranks by colleagues like things being thrown around, that when combined made Mr. Bell, her manager, suspect something paranormal. Gwen wasn't seeking wider attention, but perhaps she was crying out for help. By the time she got to the college in London, things were out of control. Maybe Hewitt Mackenzie's staff also had a vested interest in keeping the phenomena going or misreporting it. They were, after all, employed by an institution set up to prove psychic phenomena. So that's it. At a time when having a breakdown as a woman was not a good option, Gwen, maybe subconsciously, ended up going down another route. It gave her time off work and put her in contact with people who wanted to help her. She was able to sit with Kathleen Barkle, the medium at the college, a neutral, friendly person, and talk about her life and problems. It actually occurred to me the other week that Gwen's first child was named Kathleen. I don't know if she was named after Barkle, but it wasn't a family name as far as I've seen. So, if you believe in ghosts and poltergeists, then the spook's explanation is by far the best. It's simple and logical in terms of the known narrative. Personally, I'm not convinced by the RSPK option. Whilst there are obviously huge breakthroughs in science and unknowns, for RSPK to work, it would require a total rewriting of the laws of physics, which work to describe so much of the known universe. There have been and still are large sums of money offered for anyone who can prove psychokinesis under lab conditions. Uri Geller was offered $250,000 to bend a spoon under controlled conditions and couldn't. Between 1996 and 2015, there was a $1 million prize available for anyone who could demonstrate a supernatural or paranormal ability under scientific testing. There were thousands of applications, but no one won the money. As a skeptic, I am naturally drawn to the third explanation, but I still think it leaves problems in terms of explaining the amount of activity and the nature of some of that activity, some of which is beyond explanation, if it happened as described, which I suppose is a big if. But a table levitating to the ceiling before slowly falling to the floor is both hard to fake and misinterpret. What do you think? I've read, watched, and heard about hundreds of poltergeist cases, from the very famous to the totally forgotten, and I find this story to be one of the most compelling. Whatever I or you think, we will never know the truth, but I am pleased that this podcast has finally been able to shed light on Gwen's story and go some way to restoring it as one of Britain's most significant pieces of paranormal history. I will revisit it and share updates when I can. For anyone that's still wanting more about the Keighley story, I'm delighted to say that I'll be giving 2 talks and Q&As on the story. The first is an in-person event at Keighley Library on Saturday the 18th of April 2026 at 1:30. It's great to be bringing the story back to Gwen's hometown. Check out Bradford Library's website and social media for details and booking. Then I'll be delivering the talk with a live Q&A online to the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena, or ASAP. ASAP is a UK-based research charity founded as an offshoot of the Society for Psychical Research in the early 80s. This talk will be on Thursday the 21st of May 2026, 7 o'clock UK time. Check out their website for more details. If you can't join it live, then it will be released as a podcast under ASAP's Seriously Strange banner. There's a great podcast archive there, which I've enjoyed as well, so it's well worth checking out regardless. Again, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's listened along to this investigation. In the next couple of weeks, you might notice some changes to how this podcast is set up in the background. I'm going to change the name to the Poltergeist Project, of which the Keighley Poltergeist will be Series 1. So things might look a bit different, but hopefully your subscriptions and follows should all remain in place, but might be worth double checking. The Poltergeist Project Facebook page is already up and running, so go and check that out. There are some photos of Gwen on there for anyone interested in seeing what she looked like. I've also bought a brand new mic, which I'll be using for Series 2, so hopefully the audio experience will be improved for you all. I am going to, however, stick with my minimal editing and my researching as I go philosophy, so you will still have to bear with me a bit. So, what's the next case? I've delved into the Poltergeist files, and for Series 2, I'm going for something quite different. from the woolen mills of 1920s West Yorkshire to the international finance and business heart of Europe, the City of London, in 1901. Although I live in West Yorkshire now, I have lived in London, and I even worked in the city at the London Archives in Clerkenwell. And this one is a very strange little story with hardly any online presence, and it's never been researched before. I don't think it even appeared in the press at the time. It appealed to me as the story's pretty wild, and there's another mystery at its heart. The actual location within the City of London was redacted to protect the business involved. So, can I uncover another historical mystery? Solve another paranormal case? Listen to the City of London Poltergeist, Series 2 of the Poltergeist Project to find out. But for now, thank you and goodbye.